Wrestling fans. Pro Wrestle Machine bringing you the January 4th, 1993 edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Here we go. January 4th, 1993 Observer newsletter. Raw debuts. Jesse Ventura interview. 1992 Starrcade, tons more. By Observer staff. Remember when the word Starrcade gave you thoughts of the best card of the year? Starrcade no longer means that, but it had more than enough good to qualify as a solid thumbs up in my book. The show was highlighted by two excellent matches, Steamboat and Douglas vs. Pillman and Wyndham and Sting vs. Vader, and one pretty good match, Wyndham and Great Muta vs. Pillman and Too Cold Scorpio. The rest of the show wasn't good. Halfway into the show, after the two singles world title matches had ended and the tag title match was staring, the show was in the toilet and actually far worse than the dreaded Halloween Havoc was at the same point. But major credit has to be given to the four wrestlers in the tag match for saving and turning the show around, and to Sting and Vader for putting on a match even better than their excellent match at the Great American Bash. The Battle Royal was anticlimactic after the Sting-Vader match, but the surprise ending was at least interesting. It appears based on the past few cards that the standards of judging these shows is that a card with two excellent matches, SummerSlam, is a solid thumbs up, an excellent match and a good match, Survivor Series, is a split vote, two goods and two okays but key matches really bad, Havoc, is a major thumbs down, one good and a great angle, November Clash, is a major thumbs down, so I guess that means two excellents and one very good has to be a thumbs up even when the rest of the show wasn't good at all. The Battle Bowl prelim matches drew no crowd heat and only one of the four could qualify as a good match. Then Great Muta vs. Masachono did just about everything wrong in having a technically sound match utilizing just about every hold that isn't over nor understood in the United States, which equaled a library-like atmosphere and a borefist until the final minute. Ron Simmons and Steve Williams, a last-minute sub for injured Rick Rude, also generated no heat and had a flat double count-out finish, then reversed into a disqualification on Williams, which made the show feel like another of those impending disasters, especially having a bad substitute match for the main event. The legit story is that Rude was suffering from a bulging disc in his neck, the same injury that has kept him out of action since suffering it on December 9th. While the injury occurred more than 2 weeks back, WCW officials, so I'm told, didn't know Rude wouldn't be able to work until December 26th. I suppose it would have been possible to get the change on the Sunday show, although it would have required extreme last-minute effort like putting a crawl on the screen since the show was probably completed a few days beforehand. You can argue whether or not it was feasible when a main event world title match on a pay-per-view is changed, but I've got to believe it was possible and should have been done. Rude, who from all indications, despite what has been heavily rumored and reported just about everywhere, was not going to win the title from Simmons, will be out of action for an estimated 8 weeks. It was pretty well said on the show that the U.S. title will be vacated because of his injury and either Rick Steamboat or Dustin Rhodes will win the title in the tournament, and you've got to figure with Steamboat holding the tag title, who the natural next champion will be. I'll assume Rude won't return until the February 27th pay-per-view show. Well, nothing happens until it happens and you'll be reading this after, but I suspect by the time you read this that Vader will have won the WCW title from Simmons. With Sting holding the win over Vader at Starrcade, it sets those two up for another run on top with the title at stake, which is WCW's best bet to draw money right now. Judging from the results of Starrcade, I think there's a pretty good chance that Great Muta will be winning the NWA title from Masachono at the Tokyo Egg Dome on January 4th, and will defend the title on February 27th, although the latter is pure speculation while the former is something more than that. Saddest news of the past week is the passing away of veteran All Japan prelim wrestler Motoshi Okuma, who passed away December 27th at his home in Soka, Japan of a heart attack just 9 days after his 51st birthday. Okuma was a member of the Wild Bunch trio with Haruka Eigen and Masafuchi, generally working in either comedy tag teams or six-man matches against Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and a third partner. With the exception of Baba and Kimura, Okuma was the oldest active wrestler working full-time with a major office. According to the reports we received, Okuma was one of many who passed away as Japan suffered its coldest weather in many years over the past week. Okuma, a squatty 5'8", 250-pound ex-sumo wrestler, made his debut back in 1962. He was a prelim wrestler the majority of his career, working in the 70s with the late Masao Okuma, who, if I recall, died at the same time of the year about 15 years ago while still an active wrestler, and later as a tag partner of the now-retired Shinya great Koji Ka. Koji Ka and Okuma held the Asian tag team titles on many occasions during the 70s. Okuma remained a serious wrestler through the mid-80s and on occasion worked in main events in tag team matches, generally to drop the fall. By the late 80s, when Baba removed himself from the top as a serious wrestler, He worked the same patterned comedy spot matches and used Okuma, Eigen and Fuchi as his foils. Okuma had appeared to really age physically this past year, dropping some weight, although nothing that wouldn't be expected of someone his age. Titan Sports was expected to announce at a press conference on December 29 that they will be donating the gate from the January 29 card in Madison Square Garden, headline match Bret Hart vs. Bam Bam Bigelow, to relief in Somalia. An item in the USA Today said that they expected to raise $100,000 for the Red Cross Operation Hope in Somalia. I expect a decent amount of press attention to this. I'm sure Titan expects it as well, since they are holding the press conference in Madison Square Garden and were doing a lot of inviting on the day before. The status of Ric Flair in the WWF has been the subject of a lot of speculation over the past week, including one semi-erroneous report that he has already jumped from the WWF to WCW. Flair's WWF contract doesn't expire until September. There have apparently been discussions between Flair and Vince McMahon about getting a release before that time. To the best of my knowledge as of press time, Flair has not received a release, and Flair is booked on WWF shows as far out as the bookings have been completed, through early March, in a top spot. He will be moved down from headline status probably by the end of January or mid-February to second from the top status on the tour, either in singles against Mr. Perfect or in tags with Razor Ramon against Perfect in Tatanka, which may mean a serious pay cut and likely means him doing frequent jobs, since Tatanka and Doink are going to get the mega pushes these next few months. Presumably, and this all depends on many factors like size of gates or emergency situations which happen every day in wrestling and might force him back on top. One would think the odds are he would be able to earn more money in WCW by the nature of the contract they would no doubt offer him, and almost surely would be able to earn more over the long run with a WCW contract. To say there has been contact with WCW would be to indicate WCW has tampered with a wrestler under contract to WWF, which is illegal. I think we all realize illegal acts like that are commonplace in the wrestling business under the guise of social conversations. As of press time, there is smoke, but no fire, to the story. Just a quick reminder that there will be no Observer next week. However, the plan right now, if my own personal work rate holds up, is to put out 2 issues within just a few days of each other. Next week's issue, which is the final issue of the current set, will be mailed out probably just 2 or 3 days before the first issue of the next set, so if you've got A1, and your subscription expires with next week's issue, don't wait until you get the sub expires notice on your label and get next week's issue, or else you'll receive the following issue several days late. The first issue of the next set, cover dated January 18th, will include the 1992 Wrestling Observer Awards as voted by the readers. Starrcade at the Omni in Atlanta on December 20th drew 6,500 paid, more than 8,000 in the building, or roughly a half house in a building set up for $15,000 and $70,000. It would be the 3rd largest live gate for WCW in 1992, so it's not a failure, but I'm not sure that 6,500 paid with upper deck tickets at $5 for Starrcade at the Omni would be considered a success, either. Before the opening match, they had Hank Aaron present the Battle Bowl ring from 1991 to Sting. The irony of seeing Aaron standing next to Bill Watts was probably lost on almost everyone watching. Later in the show, before the Battle Royal, Paul Hornung, pro football legend from the 60s, did an interview talking about the value of a ring and showing his ring from winning the first Super Bowl in 1967. They tried to equate winning Battle Bowl with winning the Super Bowl, which is a stretch even for wrestling. It also downgraded the world title, as if having 2 of them on the same show and putting them both on in the middle of the card so they came off as prelim matches doesn't downgrade it enough, by acting like Battle Bowl was more important than the title belt. In the dark match opener, Brad Armstrong pinned Shanghai Pierce, Mark Canterbury, in 7:30 with a Russian leg sweep. Told it wasn't good. 1. Van Hammer and Dan Spivey beat Cactus Jack and Johnny B. Bad in 6:51. They seemed uncomfortable working together, which hurt the match. Bad pulled off a hot move early with a Frankensteiner, which wasn't referred to by any name, into a DDT. Finish saw Bad hit the punch on his own partner, and Jack was schoolboyed by Hammer. 1/2 star. 2. Dustin Rhodes and Big Van Vader beat Kensuke Sasaki, Power Warrior in Japan, and Barbarian in 6:56. Barbarian was bad and I can't recall Sasaki doing much. Finish saw Barbarian accidentally clothesline Sasaki, and was schoolboyed by Rhodes for the pin. The finish looked familiar. After the match, Vader clotheslined Rhodes and left him laying. 1 star. 3. Barry Windham and Great Muta beat Brian Pillman and 2 Cold Scorpio in 6:59. One of those matches that looked really interesting on paper because all 4 are talented wrestlers, and Windham and Pillman were going to team up later in the card. Not a lot of heat, but the work was good. It would have been nice to give them more time, but Pillman and Wyndham had a 20+ later in the show, so in that way it was probably a good idea not to have them out there for too long. Some very nice high spots when Pillman was in with either of the two. Wyndham and Pillman chopped the hell out of each other when in together. Scorpio did a few moves I've never seen before, including a new form of a leg drop and a somersault, into the ring into a knee drop. Finish saw Wyndham hit Scorpio with a high dropping DDT and Muta pin him with the moonsault. I was really surprised to see them have Scorpio do a job this early in his WCW tenure. 3¼ stars. 4. Sting and Steve Williams beat Jushin Liger and Eric Watts in 908. The crowd, largely dead up until this point, reacted big to Sting opening against Liger. But it was a total waste of Liger, who sold the entire match and got almost no offense in. It's mind-boggling that WCW could so completely devalue such a potential attraction. Liger kept kicking out after mainly being destroyed by Williams, who sold nothing for him the entire match. Liger tagged Watts. Watts looked bad. They'd give him a spot where he got Williams in the STF, but Williams made the ropes. Williams mercifully ended it by hot-shotting Watts for the pin. 1¾ stars. 5. Masa Chono retained the NWA heavyweight title, making Muta submit to the STF in 1429. It's not as if they did anything wrong technically, but they did everything wrong in that most of the match consisted of maneuvers that mean nothing in the US. Chono spent most of the match working over Muta's knee on the mat, which is actually what they needed to avoid to get the match over. I can't figure out why they did the kind of match that they did, because you don't have to understand that much about wrestling to know exactly the style of match they needed to avoid to get it over in the US, and Muta knows. He was a top star here and Chono has worked in this country. Did someone tell them to work like this? And if nobody did, then the next time, someone should tell them not to. Muta missed a moonsault and Chono caught him in the STF, which is now an over move, to win. 1 star. 6. Ron Simmons retained the WCW heavyweight title, beating Williams via DQ in 1512. They tried and it was all solid work, but it never got out of the blocks, either. Simmons missed a tackle and the two brawled outside the ring to a double count out. They kept brawling after the match. Simmons shoved Williams into the post, but Williams got back in and attacked Simmons again and came off the top rope on him. Williams was then DQ'd in a reverse decision, which hardly mattered because it just piled a second screw job, ending onto a first. The WCW title came off as so unimportant it was pathetic, with them acting like the King of Cable trophy and the Battle Bowl ring were more important than the world title. To make matters worse, Simmons was booed a lot when they raised his hand in victory. I think everyone has finally come to the conclusion that this experiment was a failure. 1¼ stars. 7. Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas retained the WCW and NWA tag titles, beating Pillman and Wyndham in 2002. Good from bell to bell. Crowd was still in the doldrums from the previous matches until Douglas dropkicked Pillman off the apron and Pillman caught his throat on the guardrail. However, right after, Pillman dropkicked Douglas, who was on the top rope, and took a bump on the floor, and Wyndham hit a vicious clothesline. Originally, because of the height difference, Pillman and Wyndham looked like a mismatched team, but they were excellent here. Pillman has come a long way in a short time as a heel. Wyndham may have been the best performer on the entire show in his new heel role. Douglas took the heat for a long time with many near falls on him. It wasn't until the 16-minute mark when Steamboat tagged in. Wyndham cut him off quickly with a power slam. Steamboat then took the heat for several minutes. Finally, Steamboat and Wyndham both tagged out. It went into a 4-way, and Douglas pinned Pillman with a belly-to-belly. 4¼ stars. 8. Sting pinned Big Van Vader to win the King of Cable tournament in 1650. You couldn't ask for a better match than this. This not only had hot moves, but it had a focused storyline to the match and was obviously well planned out. Vader looked like he's gained even more weight, yet never looked like he was blown up, and they worked a hot pace. Sting opened strong using moves like an enzouidri, German suplex, and even a plancha dive out of the ring onto Vader and Harley Race, and later a DDT off the middle ropes. Sting got Vader in the Scorpion, but Vader got to the ropes. The tables turned when Sting went for a Stinger splash outside the ring. Vader moved, the Sting hit the guardrail. By this point, Vader was bleeding from the mouth. Vader hit a big splash, but Sting kicked out. They went back and forth with big moves and near falls, with the storyline from the beginning that Sting needed to take Vader into a long match and wear him out to beat him. Vader destroyed Sting, who used the Ali rope-a-dope, and eventually Vader punched himself out. Sting made the comeback and used a back suplex and splash off the top, but Vader kicked out. Race distracted Sting, so Vader clotheslined him from behind, used a choke slam and splash, but Vader rolled off Sting accidentally before he could pin him. Vader came off the top again, but Sting caught him in a power slam and got the 3 count. 4½ stars. 9. Muta won the Battle Bowl Battle Royal in 1401. Totally anticlimactic after the two previous bouts, and also nothing memorable occurred. Van Hammer was thrown out by Williams in 5:55. Sting backdropped Spivey out in 6:30. Sting clotheslined Vader and both went over in 7:54. Williams and Rhodes both went over together in 11:30, leaving Wyndham with Muta. Wyndham destroyed Muta for a few minutes and threw him over, but Muta skinned the cat, came back with a few quick hot moves and finally dropkicked Wyndham over. 1.5 star. Notes: there were a number of fights in the stands. The crowd booed heavily when it was announced that Rick Rude wasn't going to wrestle because of an injury. They announced in the building that the reason Steve Williams was replacing him was because he was the #1 contender, which drew a lot of boos, as well as the fans were smart enough to realize Williams almost never works for WCW, so how could he be top contender? Williams wound up being something of a crowd favorite because most of the crowd booed Watts and much of the crowd booed Simmons. While Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura did a great job during the Sting Vader match of getting the story across to the viewers, it is becoming more obvious with each big show that the two don't complement one another. Ross is into seriously calling the matches, at least on these big shows, like a sports event wanting to talk strategy, etc. Ventura's actual color isn't particularly incisive in that regard. His strength is coming up with excellent one-liners, but Ross' serious commentary doesn't lend himself for being the setup man for the one-liners. The ramp was brought back and fireworks were used for the finish when Muta won Battle Bowl. Sting was over as far as crowd reaction far more than any other babyface. The Japanese wrestlers aren't going to mean anything on major shows unless they are put into programs that time is given to developing, and time is also given toward developing their personalities. The message was made clear here, that should have been learned at the NWA Tag Tournament when you had Hiroshi Hazi, who is one of the best workers in the business, and the crowd didn't know him and thus didn't react to him. People aren't going to react to moves that haven't first been put over on television, and if the guys haven't been on television, that guarantees their moves won't be over. This is not to say the Japanese shouldn't be used, because Liger should be a great attraction, although it may be too late now, and the others could be solid performers, but not if brought in cold. Jesse Ventura interview. On December 5, Jesse Ventura, the former wrestler and current mayor, actor and wrestling announcer, was interviewed by Mike Tenay on the Wrestling Insider's radio show, mainly regarding his lawsuit against Titan Sports. The following is a transcription of the interview. Mount, Jesse, we want to get your thoughts on many subjects this evening. First, let's concentrate on your upcoming lawsuit against your former employers, Titan Sports and the WWF. Tell us what's behind your claim that you feel you're entitled to receive residuals on your announcing work from the WWF. JV, what it is, it's simple. Vince McMahon wants to be in the normal entertainment world. He talks like he is and like he's a big operator within it. But he wants to play by his own set of rules. He doesn't want to play by the normal rules of the entertainment industry. If I do a film and that film goes to videotape, I get royalties from that. If I do a TV show, if that show is shown in reruns, I get royalties from that. Vince McMahon has put out over 150 wrestling videotapes. I would venture to guess I'm on at least 135 to 140 of them, and I haven't received one penny. Is my voice from beginning to end on many of them? When I signed to do things for Vince McMahon, I was paid to do the live events, the individual shows. Not to have him tape these shows or pay-per-views where he makes money. 2 years ago, I think it was, he was bragging in Sports Illustrated how he's made $100 million in the videotape industry. Yet he's paying no one any royalties. Mount, speaking of royalties. It seems many of the WWF's merchandising deals always come under question from many of the wrestlers. In your opinion, did you get your fair share of the money that was received from dolls, t-shirts, calendars and the like? JV, not at all. That's also part of my lawsuit. I was put on 2 calendars and never received any royalties for my picture being in a calendar. The original wrestling dolls, the thing I'm going to court about on that is that we were never given the opportunity to negotiate. If you were to do some merchandising like that out in Los Angeles, chances are the talent would get anywhere from 25 to 33% of what the parent company would get, which in this case is Titan Sports. On the original dolls that the WWF put out, in 1985, 86, 87, we weren't even getting, I believe, 1%. It was never negotiated. That's the point I'm going to make in the trial. Vince McMahon has done a lot for wrestling, and he's also changed wrestling a tremendous amount. Nobody was marketed prior to Vince McMahon. We as wrestlers had no idea what marketing was worth. We had no idea what a percentage was, and we had no idea what contracts were. Vince McMahon would market something and he never gave anyone the opportunity to negotiate that marketing. There may be certain people who were allowed to negotiate, but on general principle, nobody was allowed to negotiate anything. It was whatever Vince deemed he felt like giving you. I don't think that's right. The other thing Vince changed in wrestling is signing guys to exclusive contracts. I think this is going to come out in the trial, too. How can he call wrestlers independent contracts when they're signed to exclusive contracts? If you were truthfully an independent contractor, you could wrestle for the WWF one week and for WCW the other week. Mount, I guess that's probably the main reason why you think pro wrestlers should be considered employees of the WWF or WCW instead of as independent contractors. JVE, absolutely. That's my opinion. An independent contractor is like being a plumber. You would go out, get your own work, negotiate your own price and everything like that, and you wouldn't be held binding that you could only work in a particular neighborhood. If you're truthfully an independent contractor, you can contract to work for anyone. How can you be signed to an exclusive contract and then for tax purposes be called an independent contractor? What it does is it saves Titan Sports 7% on paying taxes. Mount, let's discuss contracts. Explain your contractual status with the WWF. JV, really? I have no contracts with them other than the one in 1984 that I was forced to sign with them as a wrestler. When Vince went across the country and plucked the talent from the American Wrestling Alliance and the different portions of the old NWA, he never told us out front when he brought us in that at some point he would want to sign us to exclusive contracts. Up until that time there had been no contracts in wrestling. If there had been, I had never been involved in any. All of a sudden, as Titan and the WWF started to grow, Vince all of a sudden came out with these bogus one-sided contracts that give the wrestler nothing and give Titan Sports everything. They had given me 3 or 4 of them and I had refused to sign them. I kept putting it off until one night at the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee, Gorilla Monsoon comes up to me 2 minutes before I'm due to go into the ring and puts it in front of me, and says, "This is straight from the old man," meaning Vince, "if you don't sign this, you don't wrestle." I looked at Monsoon and said, "You mean to tell me if I don't sign that I don't go to the ring right now?" He said, "Nope, you're done." I looked at Gorilla and said, "Okay Gorilla, I'm signing this under duress and I'm signing out of my free will." I scribbled my name on it. It isn't my normal signature, but I did sign it because I was forced to sign it essentially. At that point in my career I couldn't say no. I'd already burned my bridge with the American Wrestling Alliance with the help of Vince McMahon. So there was no real places for we as talent in the WWF would have been accepted because that was at the height of the war. That contract expired after 2 years. After that point I was never signed to anything ever again. That doesn't cover my broadcasting, which I fell into a little later. It's a whole different deal. It's not wrestling. Mount, now let's talk about that broadcasting situation. After leaving pro wrestling you became the #1 color man on the syndicated TV shows, also the NBC Saturday Night's main events, all the pay-per-view events. Why was there not a contract signed at that point? JV, I fell into the broadcasting. You remember when I got the pulmonary emboli, blood clots in lung? This knocked me out of wrestling for about 3 months. It was at that point when Vince came up with the idea of putting me on the mic and started paying me $1,000 a week while I was recuperating. This was nice because it was the first time any promoter had ever paid me while I was injured. But look at it on the other side. He had already pre-promoted me with Hulk Hogan all around the country, so he was reaping in thousands and thousands of dollars. I believe John Studd took my place. Vince made the money back in spades, so the $1,000 a week he was paying me was nothing because I drew him much more than without even appearing. Editor's note, Ventura was false advertised continually on television for main event title matches with Hogan in the fall of 1984 when the promotion knew full well he wasn't going to appear on the shows for 10 weeks after he was hospitalized, with no announcements made until fans were at the arenas the night of the shows. In many cases the advertising period for the cards hadn't even begun until after Ventura was hospitalized. He just kept me on $1,000 a week. It was a verbal thing. That's when I started doing primetime wrestling and started doing the broadcasting with Gorilla Monsoon in Canada in what would now be the Challenge Show and doing other various things. Vince kept piling on more and more things for me and yet paid me the same amount of money. I was at his beck and call. When I started doing Saturday night's main events, that was NBC, so that required a deal. For the first year, if you can imagine this, on NBC Saturday night main events, they paid me scale, which I believe was $821. But then I got the Predator deal, and that's when Barry Bloom came into my life and became my agent in Hollywood. Subsequently my personal business manager, and subsequently I became the first wrestler who ever made Vince McMahon deal with outside representation. Mount, when and where is the case scheduled to be heard? JV, it's scheduled to be heard in February at 4th District Court in St. Paul in front of Judge Paul Magnuson. I'm not sure if that's the right district, but it's in St. Paul under Judge Magnuson. Mount, who can we expect to see deposed coming up? JV, I have already been deposed, and me and my attorneys have already deposed Vince McMahon and other personnel at Titan Sports. I think the final depositions will be this coming Friday, December 11th. Mount, what was the WWF's feelings when you started branching out from wrestling and started appearing in some of the movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
JV, they reluctantly accepted it only because I made them accept it.
They tried to pretend they liked it and capitalized upon it. Vince, I could tell, always had a hostility toward me because I was the first one that flew the coup and made him deal with outside representation. Not even Hulk Hogan had outside representation when it came to dealing with wrestling.
Hulk had outside representation when it came to him doing movies,
but he still made his own deals with Vince to the best of my knowledge. Barry Bloom did all my negotiating from the summer of 1986. Vince tries to dominate.
He tries to control everyone's life.
It's no longer money for him anymore. It's the power trip. Right now I'm seriously weighing running for the U.S. Senate in 1994. We have a Republican Senator David Durenberger who has been involved in quite a few scandals, and I don't believe he's electable.
So I'm weighing that a little bit.
I'll tell you this.
If I were elected to the U.S. Senate, after I settled in for a while, I think I'd start a senatorial investigation of Titan Sports.
Mount, let's talk for a second about your thoughts about all the negative publicity that surrounded Titan Sports earlier this year when sexual harassment claims caused a major scandal.
Do you think it adversely affected the promotion? JV, I'm sure it did.
It adversely affected the promotion. Vince's policy has always been to ignore it and it'll go away.
This particular scandal, he was forced not to ignore it.
He was forced to go on Larry King. He was forced to talk to these talk show people. It wasn't going to go away. I think it damaged not only the WWF but all of wrestling. I can't really speak about the allegations because at the level I was involved in Titan Sports, I never saw any of this.
I won't make a statement of saying yes it was going on or no it wasn't.
Obviously with all the people coming forward, there had to have been something happening. I don't think everybody just makes things up like that.
It did hurt Titan Sports. Vince would have never responded to it if it hadn't hurt him.
Mount, do you have any feelings on Pat Patterson's recent return to the WWF?
JV, yeah, I have feelings that he probably never left. Those are unofficial feelings.
I think that was just a put-up or a front saying that he'd been dismissed and now he's back. I'm sure they just sent him on a little vacation. Mount, another of the problems that surfaced was when Hulk Hogan went on the Arsenio Hall show and started a backlash of former WWF stars by not admitting to his use of anabolic steroids.
Should Hulk have come clean on the show in your opinion? JV, yes, in my opinion he should have.
In my opinion the big mistake he made was calling superstar Billy Graham a drug abuser. I mean, come on. The thing people must remember is that steroids up until 1988 were legal. You could go to any doctor and get them.
It wasn't until 1988 that they became illegal.
It's very hard if you've got steroid-using athletes using something for 5 or 6 years taking something that was legal and all of a sudden the government says it's a controlled substance and it's illegal. Well, you've got people psychologically addicted. Believe me, the steroid problem is much larger than just wrestling. Mount, would you explain experiences you've had with anabolic steroids and any messages you might have for those using or considering using them? JV, I stopped using them way back in 1981. I used them off and on from 1978 to 1981. I'd use them for about a month and then I'd get off them for 6 months. I didn't take anywhere near what people are taking today. I never experienced ill side effects probably because I never abused them. I took only the recommended dosages and put 4 to 6 months in between using them. I never did what they call cycling, going on 2 or 3 kinds at once. Editor's note, the slang term is actually stacking. Cycling is something else. I feel I got away lucky. I'm not in the predicament superstar Billy Graham is in today. Billy's a dear friend of mine, but believe me, Billy is in big trouble from steroids, and he'll openly admit it. My advice is simple as if you're using them, they're against the law.
Number 2, it's cheating.
If you're using them and someone else isn't using them, you have an unfair advantage, that's cheating. I'd tell anyone contemplating using them not to because your health is by far more valuable than what strength or advantages steroids will give you. There's more to life than whatever career steroids will help you with. I'm 41 and I'm enjoying life more today than at any period in my life.
Getting back to my lawsuit, wrestlers or announcers who have worked for the WWF, if I beat McMahon, it'll open up the door, open up the floodgates because it'll mean royalties to everyone who has appeared on those tapes.
Editor's note, theoretically this would be limited to those who hadn't signed away rights, and I'm sure just about everyone involved had signed contracts giving the WWF the right to use their work on videotapes. Ventura, who worked without a contract, appears to be the exception, not the norm, so I don't know that even if Ventura were to win, it would open up floodgates, although it could have future ramifications. Mount, this is going to be a precedent-setting case. It could be a landmark decision with everyone else getting a fair piece of the pie also. JV, it's all any of us wanted from day one is a fair slice of the pie to whatever to help Titan Sports achieve the success it did. All we ever asked for was a fair cut of the pie in return, but Vince doesn't like to do that. He enjoys making all the money. But wrestlers or announcers, if I whip him in court in February, feel free to come back because it'll be easy to get money then. Mount, after announcing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Minnesota Vikings on radio the past couple of years, do you miss broadcasting football?
JV, yes and no. I enjoyed working in the NFL for 3 years.
I kind of left on a sour note up here in Minnesota. I got treated really horribly by a radio station fan.
That aside, I enjoyed doing NFL games and I enjoyed breaking through, being a wrestler who broke through to the NFL. I also enjoyed this year not doing it because I'm home on Sundays and it's very enjoyable to be with my family on Sunday instead of being on the road all weekend.
Mount, in your opinion, what kind of a job has Bill Watts done since he came in as Vice President of World Championship Wrestling? JV, for what they've hired him to do, he's probably done a good job. Bill was brought in to batten down the hatches and stop the bleeding from a company that apparently, and I'm saying apparently because I'm not on the inside, but from what I hear was losing a lot of money. Bill was brought in to shore that up and apparently that's what he's doing.
I don't look at their books.
My checks are all good. I'm happy with my working conditions.
I don't rock the boat so much when I'm happy. Results. December 13th, Moline, Illinois, WWF, 1000 Tito Santana B. Skinner 1 1/4 stars, Lance Cassidy B. Terry Taylor 3 stars, Kimala B. Jim Duggan DQ 4 stars, Crush B. Berserker 5 stars star, Beverly Brothers B. High Energy 2.5 stars, Tatanka B. Rick Martel 1 star, Lumberjack Match, Big Boss Man B. Nails Dud.
December 17th, Beaver Dam, Kentucky, Kentucky Pro Bill Lewis DDQ Man Mountain Mike Dermond and Storm B. Lumberjacks, Maniac B. Taz DQ, Maniac B. Devil Dog DQ, Jamie Dundee B. Nighthawk. December 19th, Union, South Carolina, USWF, 75, Johnny B. Good B. Demon, JW Steele, Shy Tailored Kerr San Antonio Rose, and Emilio Alicia and Funktown Kid B. Beastmaster, Rick Link, and L.A. Stevens, SW and JW Steele B. Hell's Angel Cruiser and Hal Hooper, Jimmy Valiant B. Chris Landell, Chris Hamrick, DQ, Alicia 1 Battle Royal. December 19th, Portland, Oregon, USA, 150, Lou Andrews B. Jim Pope, Billy 2 Eagles D. Buddy Wayne, Timothy Flowers B. Carl Pope, Samoa Nightmares B. C.W. Bergstrom and Mike Winner, Max Steele B. Jesse Barn DQ, Scotty the Body, Scotty Flamingo, and Bart Sawyer B. Colonel De Beers and John Rambo. December 20th, Arena Mexico in Mexico City, EMLL 200, El Mestizo and Panico B. El Vencedor and El Moro. One Night Losers Advanced Tournament, final loser gets head shaved or loses mask, Black Magic B. Troglodita, Triton B. Cro-Magnon, Popotecus B. El Brazo, Pirata Morgan B. Brazo de Oro, Lazartron, Hector Guerrero B. El Satanico, El Filoso B. Ringo Mendoza, Felino B. Oro B. Mendoza Cor, Satanico B. Brazo de Oro, El Brazo B. Mano Negra, Cro-Magnon B. Troglodita DQ, Mendoza B. Brazo de Oro, Negra B. Troglodita, Brazo de Oro B. Troglodita who lost his hair. December 20th, New Albany, Indiana, WWA, 125, Freddy Krueger B. Star Rider, Moondog Fifi B. Robbie Rage, Brickhouse Brown and Jerry Faith B. Mitch Ryder and Sean Casey, Steve Marino B. Mr. Electricity, Troy Hicks, Reno Riggins B. The Sheik, George Weingeroff. December 21st, Memphis, USWA, Boxing, Richard Lee B. Mike Samples DQ, Santa Claus, Eddie Marlin B. Burt Prentice, Kickboxing, Miss Texas B. Leslie Bellinger, Stretcher Match, Bill Dundee and Danny Davis B. Masters of Terror, Ken Wayne and Ken Raper, Jerry Lawler B. Christmas Creature, Glenn Jacobs, Southern Title vs. Hair, Jeff Jarrett B. Brian Christopher to win title, Lawler and Moondogs DDQ, Ron and Don Harris and Mike Miller. December 23rd, Beaver Dam, Kentucky, Kentucky Pro Oriental Assassin B. Waldo, Maniac B. Invader, Bill Lewis B. Man Mountain Mike, Lumberjacks B. Storm and Mad Dog, Yellow Jacket and Maniac B. Devil Dog and Taz, Chain Match, Jamie Dundee B. Nighthawk. December 23rd, Cleveland, Tennessee, TWA, Magic Dragon B. Craig Ward, Greg Sawyer B. Randy Steele, Joel Travis and Frankie Lee B. Billy Montana and Butch Cannon, Night Prowlers B. Woody Woodchuck and Intruder, Dragon and Chucky B. Sam Colt and Rick Justice, Richie Dye B. Texas Destroyer DQ. December 25th, Jacksonville, WCW, 2200, Eric Watts D. Steve Austin, 5-Minute T Challenge, Paul E. Dangerously D. Medusa, Brian Pillman B. Brad Armstrong, Barry Windham B. Dustin Rhodes, Boxing, Johnny B. Bad B. Scotty Flamingo Windham and Big Van Vader B. Masa Chono and Ron Simmons, Sting B. Great Muta, NWA and WCW Tag Title, Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas B. Jushin Liger and Kensuke Sasaki. December 25th Bayamon PR Juan Lubriel Stadium, WWC El Vikingo B El Exotico, Solid Gold B La Ley and Cyclone Salvadorino, Sasha B La Tigresa Lumberjack Match, El Profe B Victor Jovica, Atki Malumba B Jose Luis Rivera, WWC Tag Titles, Muhammad Hussein and Vigilante No. 1 B Ray Gonzalez and Rex King to win titles, Miguelito Perez B Greg Valentine, Taped Fist Match, Invader No. 1 B Fidel Sierra, Universal Title, Carlitos Colon B Abdullah the Butcher, War Games, King and Invader No. 1 and Rivera B Sierra and Hussein and Vigilante. December 25th Knoxville SMW 1600, Jimmy Golden B Dixie Dynamite, Tracy Smothers B Robert Fuller, Brian Lee and Mongolian Stomper B Kevin Sullivan and Night Stalker DQ, SMW title up first 30 minutes, Tim Horner and Ron Garvin B Dirty White Boy and Paul Orndorff, handicap match for SMW tag title, Rock and Roll Express B Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette. December 25th Dallas Sportatorium GWF, 1,948/heavily papered, Booker T B Axelrod and Stephen Dane B Jimmy James, Alex Porto B Calvin Knapp, Stevie Ray B Killer Tim Brooks DQ, Manny Villalobos B Ian Rodden DQ, Steve Simpson and Maniac Mike B John Tatum and Rod Pricegore, Kerry Von Erich and Bobby Duncombe Jr. and John Hawk B Black Bart and Johnny Mantell and Skander Akbar. December 26th Utica, WWF, 3000, Virgil B Skinner, Terry Taylor B Jim Powers, Satanka B Berserker, Razor Ramon B Big Boss Man, Bob Backlund B Rick Martel, Head Shrinkers B High Energy, Undertaker B Papa Shango. December 26th Nashville, USWA 1400, Boxing, Richard Lee B Mike Samples DQ, Santa Claus, Eddie Marlin, Dirk Prentice DQ, Kickboxing, Miss Texas B Leslie Bellinger, Stretcher Match, Bill Dundee and Danny Davis B Masters of Terror, Jerry Lawler B Christmas Creature, Southern Title vs. Air, Jeff Jarrett B Brian Christopher to win title, Lawler and Moondogs DDQ Mike Miller and Ron and Don Harris. December 26th Chatsworth, Georgia MWF, Billy Montana B David Young, Young Stallion B Intruder, Jimmy Sharp DDQ Frankie Lee Woody Woodchuck B Butch Cannon, Lethal Weapon No. 1 and Greg Sawyer B Joel Travis and David Young DQ. December 26th St. Petersburg WCW 1350, Steve Austin D Eric Watts 2 stars, 5-minute challenge Medusa D Paulie Dangerously 1 star, Brian Pillman B Brad Armstrong 2 3/4 stars, Barry Windham B Dustin Rhodes 3 3/4 stars, Boxing, Johnny B Bad B Scotty Flamingo 1/2 star, Windham and Big Van Vader B Ron Simmons and Masachona DQ 3 1/2 stars, Sting B Great Muta 3 1/2 stars, NWA and WCW tag title, Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas B Jushin Liger and Kensuke Sasaki 3 1/4 stars. December 26th Johnson City, Tennessee SMW 1700, Jimmy Golden B Dixie Dynamite 1 1/2 star, Tracy Smothers B Robert Fuller 2 stars, Brian Lee and Mongolian Stomper B Kevin Sullivan and Night Stalker 3 stars, Tim Horner and Ron Garvin B Dirty White Boy and Paul Orndorff 32 minutes 2 stars. SMW tag title up and handicap match, Rock and Roll Express B Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette 3 1/4 stars. December 26th Vigs, PR, WWC El Exotico B Cyclone Salvadorino, Ray Gonzalez and Rex King B Solid Gold, Victor Jovica B El Vigilante No. 1 DQ Miguelito Perez B Muhammad Hussein, Invader No. 1 DDQ Fidel Sierra, Carlitos Colon B Aki Malumba. December 26th Hartford, WWF, 4000, Repo Man B Lance Cassidy, Damian Demento B Tito Santana, Bushwhackers and Tiger Jackson B Beverly Brothers and Little Mighty Moses, IC title, Shawn Michaels B Marty Jannetty, WWF tag title, Money Incorporated B Nasty Boys, WWF title, Bret Hart B Ric Flair 25 minutes. December 26th Marshall, Texas, Indiana, Bubba Fangman B Ed Robinson, Billy Joe Travis and Amazing Samson B Arabian Sultan and Chris Germany, Tasha Simone Love B Animal, Kevin Von Erich B Scott Braddock, Chris Adams B Iceman King Parsons, Adams B Action Jackson, Adams B Animal, Adams 1 Battle Royal. December 26th Cloverdale, BC WCCW, 250 Frog B Cobra, Buddy Rose B Firefighter Adrian Mighty Quinn B Buddy Wayne, Coal Miners Glove Match, Ol Olson B Vern Siebert, War Games, Timothy Flowers and Akam Singh and Adrian, and Quinn B Wayne and Great Gamma and Johnny Canuck and Michelle Starr. December 27th Nassau Coliseum, WWF, 9200, Lance Cassidy B Repo Man 1 star, Damian Demento B Tito Santana Dud Bushwhackers and Tiger Jackson B Beverly Brothers and Little Mighty Moses 1 1/2 star, IC title, Shawn Michaels Kerr Randy Savage 2 1/4 stars, Jim Duggan B Brooklyn Brawler 2 stars, WWF tag title, Money Incorporated B Nasty Boys 2 1/2 stars, WWF title, Bret Hart B Ric Flair 25 083 3/4 stars. December 27th Charlotte WCW, 2100, Boxing, Johnny B. Bad B. Scotty Flamingo Dud, 5-minute challenge Adusa D. Paulie Dangerously Dud, Barry Windham B. Dustin Rhodes 2 stars, Great Muta D. Steve Austin 1/2 star, Masachono Kerr Big Van Vader 2 3/4 stars, NWA and WCW tag titles.
Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas beat Jushin Liger and Kensuke Sasaki 32 minutes 2.5 stars.
December 27th Beckley, West Virginia, SMW, 550 Jimmy Golden beat Dixie Dynamite, Tracy Smothers beat Robert Fuller, Brian Lee beat Kevin Sullivan, SMW title up first 30 minutes, Tim Horner and Ron Garvin beat Paul Orndorff and Dirty White Boy 31 minutes, handicap match for SMW tag titles, Rock and Roll Express beat Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette. December 27th Toronto WWF, 3500, Virgil B. Skinner, Terry Taylor beat Jim Powers, Razor Ramon beat Big Boss Man, Had Shrinkers beat High Energy, Tatanka beat Berserker, Bob Backlund beat Rick Martel, Undertaker beat Papa Shango. December 27th Greenville, South Carolina WCW, 2400, Boxing, Johnny B. Bad B. Scotty Flamingo 5 minutes challenge, Medusa D. Paulie Dangerously, Eric Watts D. Brian Pillman, Ron Simmons and Dustin Rhodes beat Barry Windham and Big Van Vader DQ, Masachono beat Steve Austin, Sting beat Jushin Liger, NWA and WCW tag titles, Rick Steamboat and Shane Douglas beat Great Muta, and Kensuke Sasaki 35 minutes. December 27th Worcester, WWF, 4000, Damian Demento beat Tito Santana 1 1/4 stars, Jim Duggan beat Brooklyn Brawler Dud, Bushwhackers and Tiger Jackson beat Beverly Brothers and Little Mighty Moses 1/2 star, IC title, Shawn Michaels Kerr Randy Savage 3/4 star, Lance Cassidy beat Repo Man Dud.
WWF tag title Money Incorporated beat Nasty Boys 2 3/4 stars.
December 20th White Plains, New York, WWF, 3000, Tito Santana beat Mike Sharp 2 stars, Bam Bam Bigelow beat Virgil 2.5 stars, Tatanka beat Damian Demento 2 stars, Bushwhackers beat Beverly Brothers, Bob Backlund beat Rick Martel 2 stars, Undertaker beat Papa Shango 1/2 star. December 20th Memphis, USWA, 2100, Burt Prentice and Leslie Bellinger beat Miss Texas and Eddie Marlin, Oriental Deathmatch, Bill Dundee and Danny Davis beat Masters of Terror, Southern Title vs. Zeke Rivers Hair, Jeff Jarrett beat Brian Christopher, Rivers got head shaved, USWA tag title, Ron and Don Harris beat Moondogs, USWA title vs. Mask, Jerry Lawler beat Christmas Creature, Moondog Spot 1 Moondog Battle Royal. Special thanks to Richard Stafford, Ron Lemieux, Gene Ristiano, Scott Cornish, Joel Colesrud, Jerry Lane, Jeff Cohen, Jerry Wilson, Dan Paris, Stuart Kemp, Steve Dr. Lucius Sims, Freddie Fargo, Evan Schlesinger, Tim Whitehead, Paul Adamovic, Bruce Mitchell. Little in the way of news because most of the arenas closed down for Christmas and will start up this coming weekend.
I don't know if this is the case nationwide, or just here on the West Coast or just in San Jose, but the AAA show has been moved from 4:30 Pacific Time on Sundays to 2:30, which makes it head-to-head with WCW main event. UWA and MLL combined for another major show on December 21st, the final big one of the year in Puebla with Pierre Roth Jr. and Dandy and Dos Cars vs. Connect and Parata Morgan and Emilio Charles Jr. on top plus UWA Trios champs the Death Missionaries in a non-title match against MLL's famed trio team, Los Brazos. December 16th was the one-night Acapulco Cup tournament won by CMLL light heavyweight champ Pierre Roth when he pinned CMLL heavyweight champ Black Magic in the finals, which should set up title matches for the future. Results like this are why the lighter weight divisions draw money, because they always maintain their credibility.
Pierre Roth retained his title December 27th in Cuernavaca over Parata Morgan. The final Arena Mexico show of the year on December 20th drew an estimated 200 fans in the 17,00 plus building, which is probably the smallest crowd in years for a one-night 15-man losers advance tournament ending with the ultimate loser losing either his hair or mask. It came down to Troglodita, who lost to Mano Negra, Cro-Magnon and Black Magic, versus Brazo de Oro, who lost to Morgan, El Satanico and Ringo Mendoza.
Troglodita ended up losing his hair. Japan.
Everything closed down here as well, waiting for the big opening week of the year with 11 shows in the Korakuen Mall are in 1 week. Yukihiro Kanemura of Wing captured the WWC Caribbean title on December 18th in Fukushima, pinning Miguelito Perez, which I believe is the first time a WWC title has ever changed hands in Japan. Jumbo Tsurita's liver problem must be serious since he'll miss the entire January tour as well. All Japan announced January 2nd at Korakuen Hall will be the annual first night battle royal plus Mitsuharu Masawa and Toshiaki Kawada versus Stan Hansen and Butch Masters, Gigante Warrior from Mexico, and what a frightening thought that they may give him a push, Akira Tao and Masafuchi versus Terry Gordy and Richard Slinger, Jun Akiyama vs. Steve Williams,
Kenta Kobashi and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi vs. Al Perez and Barry Horowitz. I guess we'll see just how good Kobashi and Kikuchi are having to work with Perez, and Abdullah the Butcher vs. Johnny Smith.
January 3rd at Korakuen Hall has Misawa and Kawada and Kikuchi vs. Tao and Fuchi and Akiyama, Hansen and Smith vs. Gordy and Williams, Kobashi vs. Masters, the annual junior heavyweight battle royal, and Johnny Ace and Perez vs. Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton. All Japan women have rearranged the year opener on January 4th to Bull Nakano and Asia Kong vs. Kyoko Inoue and Toshio Yamada, Manami Toyota vs. Saki Hasegawa for the EVA title, Akira Hokuto vs. Debbie Malenko for the Pacific title, Yumiko Hata and Takaku Inoue vs. Bat Yoshinaga and Tomoko Watanabe and Terry Power and Suzuka Manami vs. Mima Shimoda and Atsuko Mita. Planned for 1993 WrestleMarinePiad, April 2nd, is for every match to feature all Japan women versus women from another promotion. The group is hoping to break the all-time attendance record for women's wrestling in Japan of 13,000 set in 1985 for Lioness Asuka vs. Jaguar Yokota and Chigusa Nagio vs. Devil Masami double main event. LLPW has a show at Korakuen on January 4th as well with Shinobu Kandori in 5 matches in a row as the main event. Weighing on January 2nd at Korakuen Hall has Mr. Pogo and Mitsuhiro Matsunaga and Crush the Terminator vs. Kim Duke and Cuban Assassin, David Cannell, and Muhammad Hussein, Lou Fabiano. In a bunkhouse death match, Kanemura defends the Caribbean belt against Rick Patterson. Now on January 3rd at Korakuen Hall has Shinriki and Kendo Nagasaki vs. Umanosuke Ueda and Bob Orton and Kenichi Oya vs. Rod Price on top. I haven't seen the complete tape of the women's November 26th Dream Fight in Kawasaki show, but did get a tape of the Toyota and Yamada vs. Dynamite Kansai and Mayumi Ozaki match. It's not like this was the best match of the year, although it was voted match of the year in All Japan Women and the competition was the stiffest ever this year, but it is a match that needs to be seen. Interesting thing is that in a brutal match situation, that Yamada actually comes across better than Toyota, who has all the pretty moves but Yamada's moves and movements come off as more devastating. Don't be surprised to see Big Van Vader return to New Japan in 1993. Japanese television rundown. December 6th All Japan, 1. Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace beat Patriot and Eagle, Del Wilkes and Jackie Fulton, when Hansen pinned Eagle with a lariat. Only the finish aired but there was a lot of heat at the end so it seemed good. 2. Giant Baba and Kobashi beat Tao and Akiyama. Baba was taking bumps left and right here. It's not like he was good, but you'd never believe how much work he did. Went to all the near falls and there was super heat as Akiyama kept kicking out of one finishing move after another. This wasn't quite as good as Baba and Kobashi's match the week before, but it was excellent nonetheless. Considering Akiyama had only been wrestling for 10 weeks when this match took place, his performance is nothing short of incredible. Kobashi finally pinned him after a picture-perfect moonsault. 4 stars. Misawa and Kawada beat Gordy and Williams. It started slow-paced, but the work was good, since they were going 27 minutes. There was no crowd noise during the early portion of the match because they had to follow the previous match. Mostly this match consisted of Gordy and Williams, since they were doing the job, destroying Kawada. Misawa didn't do much because his knee was out so the match wasn't as good as you'd expect from these 4. It didn't get hot until about 22 minutes in, and even then Misawa was too injured to do much as he could barely walk. Kawada did everything, just got destroyed, then made a comeback and pinned Williams with the Enzo Idri. 3 stars. December 7th All Japan, 1. Baba and Kobashi beat Dan Spivey and Kendall Windham when Kobashi pinned Windham with the moonsault. Only the finish aired on TV and Kobashi was in during that entire period so at least that looked good. 2. Williams and Gordy beat Eagle and Patriot. Good action. The teams worked well together although at times Eagle and Patriot showed they were a little green. Williams pinned Patriot with a stampede while at the same time Gordy power-bombed Eagle. 3 stars. 3. Tao and Akiyama beat Abdullah the Butcher and Giant Kimala 2. Abdullah was wearing his pants higher than ever, hiked up to just about even with the nipples. Tao pinned 2 with the golden arm bomber. 2 stars. 4. Misawa and Kawada beat Hansen and Ace. Hot open. Misawa's knee was still out so Kawada once again had to carry things. Typically good match with Misawa's ineffectiveness due to injury keeping it from reaching 4 stars. Hansen pinned Kawada with a lariat delivered out of nowhere. 3 1/2 stars. December 19th New Japan, 1. Ultimo Dragon and Masao Orihara from War defeated Jushin Liger and Koji Kanemoto in 1804. Even though this was Dragon's hometown Nagoya that it was taped in, they didn't react that special to him.
This had surprisingly little heat considering it was interpromotional, and also it was the first time Liger and Dragon opposed each other.
Some good moves early, but it started slow.
Dragon is hurt a lot by the mask because his facial expressions when selling and making a comeback are so strong.
Liger and Dragon were in together maybe 30 seconds total, so they were saving it all for the Tokyo Dome.
Kanemoto took his game up another notch here. Definite future superstar.
The heat was great in the last 5 minutes when they started pulling out all the great moves. At the end there were 3 straight dives, including Orihara doing a moonsault off the top rope to the floor and Liger doing a flip off the top turnbuckle to the floor. Finally Liger and Dragon got in and Dragon kicked out of 2 Liger bombs, and Dragon wound up pinning Kanemoto with Liger's own finisher, the Liger bomb. 4 stars, 2. Hellraisers, a few days before they changed to that name from New Road Warriors, beat Scott Norton and Jim Neidhart in 4:55.
They crammed a lot of action into a short time period.
Crowd was pumped to see Hawk versus Norton. Neidhart wasn't in much, and when he was in, he just sold. Hawk pinned Neidhart with a clothesline off the top rope. 2 stars, 3. Hiroshi Hazi pinned Masa Chono in 25:04 in a non-title match. Excellent bout. This was one of those combination old style and new style matches. The first part of the match was 70s style with Hazi using chain wrestling to get from one move to another and dominating. It was similar to Hart Michaels in that you're almost disappointed until about 20 minutes in because they haven't cut loose. But then when it's over you realize it was actually a classic. The last 6 minutes were better than Hart Michaels and Super, with both men going for their hot moves, blocking the move, hitting the move, kicking out from the pins back and forth and getting submissions, and getting to the ropes. Finish saw Hazi miss a double knee drop off the top. Chono hit the STF, Hazi got to the ropes. Chono came off the top with a knee drop to the knee, which visually looked like it bent Hazi's knee to a degree far greater than it's supposed to go. Hit the STF, Hazi made the ropes. Hazi made a comeback and did a Northern Lights suplex while standing on the top rope for a near fall, then got Chono in the STF and Chono made the ropes. They traded high kicks. Hazi went for the Soviet suplex, Chono blocked. Chono came back with a Yakuza kick, Hazi blocked the second Yakuza kick and hit 2 Soviet suplexes, and went for the Northern Lights, but Chono turned it into a DDT and hit a Yakuza kick, but Hazi blocked the second. Hazi hit a Soviet suplex and Northern Lights suplex, but Chono kicked out. Then Hazi hit a second Northern Lights suplex and got the 3 count. 4 1/4 stars. December 20th All Japan, 1. Hansen and Ace drew Gordy and Williams. This was the 30-minute draw from Budokan, but only the last 8 minutes aired. All 4 were drenched in sweat, although during the early period on TV, they mainly worked over Gordy's arm. Williams made a hot tag and pulled off some new moves for him, including a belly-to-belly suplex while standing on the top rope and a Northern Lights suplex. They kept getting Ace in near-fall situations, which got big pops since the crowd knew Ace would be doing the job. They were all brawling on the mat when the bell rang. 3 1/2 stars, 2. Misawa and Kawada beat Tao and Akiyama to win the tournament. Started slow, working over Misawa's bad knee. Kawada destroyed Akiyama when they were in together. They went to the near falls with Misawa pinning Akiyama after 2 Tiger drivers or Liger bombs or whatever you want to call the double arm suplex dropped into a power bomb move. Real good match, but this is supposed to be the climactic match of the year and they've had so many bouts all year far better than this. 3 3/4 stars. USWA. Jeff Jarrett won the Southern title from Brian Christopher on December 21st in Memphis, and the rest of the week, in a match where he put up his hair. This set up an angle for the December 28th show where Christopher wanted a rematch and Jarrett wanted him to put up his hair. Christopher said he'd put up Burt Prentice's hair. Prentice then said he wouldn't put up his hair and Christopher fired Prentice as manager. Christopher then asked Mike Samples to put up his hair but Samples said no. Christopher then fired Samples as his advisor but Samples said that Christopher couldn't fire him because he quit. Then he asked Zeke Rivers, who is the guy who has been setting up the rings for years, and last week Christopher brought him in as his new valet, to put up his hair. Rivers said no. Then Christopher brought out jobbers Mr. Paradise and Mr. Clyde, who both agreed that they would put up their hair so Christopher could get the match with Jarrett. Later Rivers came back and said he had reconsidered and he would put up his hair. What I believe this is all about is that Rivers put up his hair in Memphis on December 28th and lost it. Then Clyde and Paradise will get their heads shaved in the other cities when they go around next week. This is basically a mid-1970s angle where Brian's father hired Mickey Poole and Poole got his head shaved and Lawler then bought him a bad-looking wig to cover it up. The December 28th show drew a $15,000 house and with kids under 12 free, there were an estimated 3,500 in the building, which is the largest Mid-South Coliseum crowd in recent memory. Ron and Don Harris won the USWA tag title from the Moondogs on the December 28th show when Ron Harris pinned Spot after coming off the top rope with a loaded boot. The Christmas creature isn't Brian Lee as speculated on here last week since he was working house shows the last few nights while Lee was working SMW shows the same nights.
It's instead a rookie wrestler who is 6'8" named Glenn Jacobs.
He was unmasked in a title versus mask match with Lawler on December 28th. However, they put makeup on his face to make him resemble Sid Justice, and got him out of there so fast that probably some fans thought he was. The headline match on December 20th was what was billed as a 16-man Moondog Battle Royal. It's under Royal Rumble rules with men entering every 2 minutes, but the difference is, on the way to the ring, all of the men will be given a board when they enter. They drew the names on television with Moondog Spot and Don Harris starting. Spot ended up surviving until the end, throwing out Master of Terror number 2, Ken Raper, to win. Burt Prentice showed a clip of Miss Texas beating Leslie Bellinger from last week and Eddie Marlin jumped in and hugged Texas. Prentice showed a freeze frame of it and said to look how long the two were hugging and that Marlin was having an affair with Texas, who was really a man named Bubba Johnson who had a sex change.
This week is a mixed tag with Marlin and Texas versus Bellinger and Prentice, which ended when Prentice KO'd Texas with a chain.
The other major angle is between Danny Davis and Bill Dundee versus Knights of Terror.
This week they'll be having an Oriental Death match which was also won by David and Dundee.
Rules were that the man who loses the fall, his partner is then put into a cage for the next fall. It's death match rules, so the loser of the fall has to get up by the count of 10 or the match ends, but there is no limit to the number of falls. There was a very subtle hint of a split with David and Dundee on television, but Dundee only has 1 week left with the promotion before joining WCW as a road agent, so don't expect anything to come of it. The December 26th show in Nashville drew 1,400 fans and $7,000. The gate was the largest in the building in several years, attributed to Jerry Lawler, who rarely works the weekly Nashville cards, teaming with the Moondogs for the first time. SMW. This group drew the 2 largest crowds in its history on December 25th in Knoxville and December 26th in Johnson City. Both shows drew just over 1,600 paid, with all tickets $4.30 in Knoxville and $1,705 in Johnson City. The other show of the weekend on December 27th in Beckley, West Virginia drew about 550 paid with all seats $4, but the SMW television show has only been on the air for 2 weeks in Beckley. The Knoxville main event was a handicap match with the SMW tag titles at stake, with Rock and Roll Express defending against the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette. Before the match, Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden came to ringside to challenge the winners. Rock and Roll agreed to give them a title shot while the Bodies hedged and ended up not agreeing. The finish saw Fuller and Golden come to ringside, and whenever the Bodies had the Rock and Rolls down, Golden or Fuller would distract the refs so he couldn't make the count. Finally, when the Rock and Rolls had the Bodies beat, Golden turned the ref around fast while Fuller kept Cornette from interfering, and the Rock and Rolls won. After the match, the Bodies and Cornette beat up on Fuller and Golden 3-on-2 until the Rock and Rolls made the save. Then when the Rock and Rolls went to shake Fuller and Golden's hands, Fuller and Golden jumped them and left them laying. They did the same match in Johnson City on December 26th, but they didn't do all the post-match back and forth after Fuller and Golden caused the Rock and Rolls to win. The other key match in both cities was Tim Horner and Ron Garvin versus Dirty White Boy and Paul Orndorff, with the SMW singles title at stake in the first 30 minutes if either Horner or Garvin could pin White Boy. As you'd suspect, Horner pinned White Boy in about 32 minutes each night, so White Boy retained the title. Even though that kind of stipulation sounds stupid, they did a logical job of having Bob Armstrong explain it on television. Bobby Eaton will be in for a few months before going back to WCW, starting at the next television tapings. The TV shows that aired December 12th and December 19th were excellent. This show, production-wise, is nowhere near the best show in the country, but content-wise it is improving to where it is leaps and bounds above any other wrestling show in the US. It features by far the best localized interviews that have been done by any promotion in years. All the angles make sense and something is added to them on every show. Obviously this is mainly a credit to those putting together the shows, but it's also a statement about producing 1 hour of quality television per week as opposed to attempting to fill up 5 to 7 hours per week. This past weekend's show saw them replay the Rock and Roll vs. Heavenly Bodies non-title brawl that started and went off the air in progress last week. Fuller and Golden tried to interfere and help the Bodies win this time, but it backfired and the Rock and Rolls won again. Cornette then did an interview claiming Fuller and Golden deliberately screwed up and cost them the match. Fuller then did an interview and said it would be the last time they would ever help out the Heavenly Bodies. Horner sent a video when he was asked again where the SMW title belt, which he stole on television 2 weeks earlier, was, and he showed him giving the belt to a kid who had just undergone spinal surgery because he said the kid was a real champion, unlike White Boy.
When they showed the clip, they came back with Ron Wright claiming that the belt being stole from them has him so upset that now he's suffering from gout. Dixie Dynamite and Kevin Sullivan had a terrible match with one missed spot after another.
Funniest line of the show came after Armstrong did an interview and said he was going to make it so hot for Sullivan that it'll be like his butt was sitting on fire. Sullivan came back and said he didn't mind, because where he came from, it was plenty hot all the time, and I don't think he was referring to Daytona Beach. January house shows will have Bodies vs. Fuller and Golden, with the winners getting a title shot with Rock and Rolls later the same night, White Boy vs. Smothers for SMW title, Horner vs. Orndorff, and Sullivan vs. Lee.
Oregon. Scotty the Body returned for one night on December 19th, teaming with Bart Sawyer to beat Colonel De Beers and John Rambo.
Unlike Scotty's first return appearance since joining WCW, this time the crowd remained at the 150 level. Jesse Barr has turned heel and is teaming with Lou Andrews. With the Bruise Brothers having left for USWA, the Samoan Nightmares no idea who are in as the new top heel team, although they are very green.
Colonel Barbaro, Beetlejuice, Art Love Machine Barr, and Chippendale Chaz Taylor were scheduled for the December 26th show, which included a one-night tournament to crown new Northwest Tag Team Champions.
Don't have results yet, but believe Conan and Beetlejuice won the belts and are going to defend them in Mexico for AAA as a Mexican team which came to the US and brought one of their regional titles to Mexico. Bruiser Bryan is out with a broken ankle. They still talk about Ryuma Go on television, although with Oriental Pro Wrestling most likely folding shortly, it appears that relationship is out the window. There has been talk of using AAA talent, but I don't think it's gone past the talking stage. Texas.
Global will be changing its presentation starting with the new year.
The Christmas show was limited to 7 matches, and a lot of the bad skits were eliminated.
On the show, Steve Simpson and mystery partner Maniac Mike faced Rod Price and John Tatum. When the match started, a large gift box was delivered for Simpson. Gary Hart opened the box and Mike came out of the box with a broom. After Mike delivered a few clotheslines, Tatum and Price walked off and were counted out. Mike turned full-fledged babyface, carrying around Brandon Baxter. January 1st has Black Bart and Johnny Mantell vs. Kerry Von Erich and Bobby Duncombe Jr. in a double chain match, Mike vs. Tatum, Angel of Death vs. Stevie Ray, Price vs. Simpson, and the return of the Super Destroyer, Bill Irwin. Chris Adams is running shows under the World Class banner using himself, Kevin Von Erich, Iceman King Parsons, Action Jackson, Billy Joe Travis, and others. Here and there. John Gold is promoting baseball card shows on February 7th in Syracuse, New York with Jimmy Snuka and Misty Blue, and February 7th in Kenilworth, New Jersey with Nikolai Volkov.
Win on January 16th in Dundalk, Maryland at the Steeltown Entertainment Complex has AC Golden vs. Chris Candido for the win title, Cream Team vs. Lords of Darkness, Adrian Hall vs. Morgus the Maniac, and a win mid-heavyweight tournament featuring Lightning Kid. Frenchie Martin is apparently the booker for the AWF in Puerto Rico and supposedly has names like Jake Roberts and Jim Neidhart booked for future shows.
John Tenta Earthquake shot an angle on December 26th in Cloverdale, BC for West Coast Championship Wrestling, where he was attacked by Buddy Rose and Michelle Starr, so he'll be in as a face starting January 30th in Cloverdale vs. Rose. El Vigilante and Muhammad Hossein won the WWC tag titles from Rex King and Ray Gonzalez on December 25th in Bayamon.
Atki Malumba, who I believe is Giant Kimala too, and Abdullah the Butcher are the heels on top, feuding with Carlitos Colon over the Universal title.
John McAdams Universal Championship Wrestling returns on February 12th at the Elks Club in Nashua, New Hampshire, with Bill Wilcox defending the title against Bad Hammer Jones on top.
Heard from one World Traveler fan who has seen major cards everywhere in the world that attended the December 19th Bremen, Germany show promoted by Otto Wanz, and said that Wanz shows have the best atmosphere to watch wrestling in anywhere in the world. The quality of the wrestling wasn't the greatest, but the show was good, but he said nobody puts on shows with such good atmosphere. Crowd was about 12,000 with average ticket price at $20, so they did a $200,000 plus house. They either don't allow anyone under 15 to attend the shows or just no kids attend the shows. Jushin Liger vs. Franz Schumann, which lasted 32:55, was said to have been 4.5 stars, while Eddie Gilbert vs. David Finlay lasted 24:54 and was 4 stars, and Rambo vs. Hawk went 19:07 and was 2.5 stars. Wanz already announced his big show for next year on December 18th in Bremen.
WWF.
Bill Mushnick of the New York Post had a column mention on December 28th about the Nails incident. Here's some pro wrestling news you won't read. The Slammers column. The wrestling headliner known as Nails, real name Kevin Wakehalls, was fired by the WWF on December 14. About the same time, he filed a report with the Green Bay Police stating that he pushed WWF President Vince McMahon to the ground after McMahon tried to sexually assault him. The incident is alleged to have taken place in a locker room at Green Bay's Brown County Expo Center prior to a WWF show. The latest in a string of drug, sex and child abuse charges against WWF executives and/or employees has been dismissed by a WWF spokesman as a case of Waycalls attempting to extort money from McMahon. Green Bay police are investigating. Waycalls, according to the police report, claims McMahon sexually assaulted him on another occasion last month at MSG. Waycalls, under advice from his lawyer, has yet to make any public comments. The $150,000 Waycalls was allegedly trying to extort from McMahon at the time of the incident that was talked about by a Titan PR firm was, according to one WWF source, money he wanted paid in advance for putting Undertaker over every night at the house shows. The SummerSlam payoff Waycalls was unhappy about was reportedly $8,000. Another major star the Titan office put in contact with us but asked anonymity because he was afraid of possible reprisals from other wrestlers stated that just recently, during a drug test, Waycalls was complaining about the drug test being unconstitutional and allegedly made the statement that the only way to make money in this company was to claim that somebody grabbed your you-know-what. The new Saturday morning television show on USA Network, which originally was going to be called Slam and Jam, will instead be named WWF Mania because WCW beat them to the punch calling their record album Slam and Jam. The final episode of Primetime Wrestling aired December 28. Max Moon, Tom Borick, was fired. Don't know if he was fired but contractually prohibited from working elsewhere. It's one thing if a guy quits to invoke the contract to keep them from going to the opposition, but it's another when a guy is fired to use the term suspended to keep him from working, where he can do whatever he pleases, but he's a talented wrestler and WCW should try to use him. Remember that nobody has seen him as Paul Diamond in years since he wore a hood at Kato and Max Moon for so long. He's actually an unseen talented wrestler who hasn't been overexposed nationally, and there aren't too many around who fit that bill. Crush, Bryan Adams, will be kept out of action for a long time. The cover story is that he's going to be selling the injuries suffered at the hands of Doink the Clown, Matt Bourne. WWF lost its television in Germany, Austria, Netherlands, and Switzerland. I'm not making this up. Doink will be headlining many shows starting late February against Bret Hart for the title leading up to WrestleMania, so that explains why they'll be building the TV around him. The other show will be headlined by Undertaker vs. Yokozuna. Most of the other key programs will remain similar, Money Incorporated vs. Nasty Boys, Michaels vs. Jannetty, etc. I believe Randy Savage is going to do the Superstars show with McMahon and Jerry Lawler and co-host the Monday Night Raw show. Savage will do some wrestling, but not be involved in regular programs, and not work full-time. Houses were generally strong since Christmas week is traditionally the biggest week of the year for the wrestling business, topped off by December 27th matinee at the Nassau Coliseum doing a $148,000 house headlined by Heart Flair. Wade Boggs appeared on TV this weekend as they showed clips of Mr. Perfect hitting home runs, with Boggs saying Perfect had a perfect swing. I guess Steve Garvey must have had a prior engagement. Kamala's first run as a babyface around the horn will be against Kim Chi, Steve Brooklyn Brawler Lombardi. Heart Flair matches continue to get rave reviews. Savage Michaels matches were said to have been disappointments. Savage seems to have lost his motivation in the ring. WCW. An angle was shot on December 27 in Charlotte where Arnold Anderson and Eric Watts got into a street fight in front of a 7-11. They even had the Charlotte police participate, since Doug Dillinger was a longtime member of the Charlotte Force, and arrested Eric. I didn't get full details, although it should appear on television within the next week, but I believe the storyline will go something like Anderson was badly injured in the fight, which will explain his absence until returning in April. Watts was arrested, but a Rodney King-like videotape from a passerby will exonerate Eric. At one point, and I don't know if this will happen, Bill was going to fire Eric on television for being arrested before Eric got exonerated. Anderson will receive a reported $1,500 per week to sit home and sell the injury Watts put on him, and then will come in with a new contract at a rumored $750 per house show. Bobby Eaton will also return at about the same time. Scotty Flamingo has a broken hand but is still working. Everything has been worked out with Steve Austin, who will probably be pushed as a regular tag team with Brian Pillman. Although the houses, with the exception of Starrcade, were nothing to talk about over Christmas week, nothing above $24,000, despite that it's traditionally the hottest week of the year to draw, the shows themselves were among the best. Jacksonville, St. Pete and Greenville were all excellent house shows. The only show of the week not listed in the results was a December 26th afternoon show in Fort Myers, Florida that drew less than 1,000. Sting missed both Fort Myers and Charlotte because he has a specific amount of dates per year that he has to work in his contract that they booked him in more than that number of dates. So he skipped the afternoon of the 2 double shots. In the company's defense, they probably didn't know about this in time to change the advertising. And in Sting's defense, considering Bill Watts' comments and actions, I don't know he should feel any moral obligation to do anything not specified in his contract. But the fans got screwed as well in both cities when the company's top star doesn't appear as advertised. Actually, it was worse since Rude was injured, although he appeared at all the shows but couldn't work. In Charlotte, Simmons and Armstrong both missed the card as well since they missed their flight out of Florida. It was announced in the building that it was transportation problems because of the bad weather, and the weather was bad enough that the fans bought it as the reason for Simmons and Sting not being there even though it wasn't the reason. 3 were a lot of fireworks this past week on the 900 line. Bill Watts and Steve Beverly ripped into Mark Madden, who wrote a parody that appeared in Pro Wrestling Torch. It has become commonplace for Watts to rip into newsletters, because he apparently never learned how to take criticism, only to dish it out, but never mentions them by name, although he broke that rule in this instance. I found Madden's piece one of the funniest things in a newsletter in a while. Bill and Eric Watts along with Dusty and Dustin Rhodes were the subject of the parody, which was built around a fictitious last TBS broadcast where each had one last chance to push their son. I realized some found one specific paragraph in bad taste where Eric was in a video and was crucified but made a comeback with the crawler on the screen. Eric Watts, rising on the 3rd day at an arena near you as a satire on one of the Watts videos that aired a few weeks back on television. There is a difference between satire and seriousness, even when the satire is delivering a serious message. Having been through all this before many times, trying to obfuscate legitimate criticism of someone's decisions or performance by attempting to create the idea that the criticism is based on personal dislike, and sometimes it can be, other times it's a total con job to hide the real issue, can be an effective defense if you change the real issue, of which there is no legitimate defense for, to the fake personal issue so the real issue is forgotten. In this case with Bill Watts, thus far his record is there in dollars, cents, ratings and attendance. In 7 months at the helm, he's had some successes and more failures. Overall, the quality of the house shows have gone down. The Saturday night TBS show has improved but main event has been inconsistent. Based on the syndication I've seen, it has gotten worse. Attendance has gone down. Gates are down even more. Ratings hit all-time lows but have increased since, but that can largely be explained by seasonal variations since they are still way down from last year. The quality of the talent is down. The buy rate for the October pay-per-view was encouraging. Overall interest in the product has decreased, and that is what should be judged. This lashing out at those who report these numbers to create a war with the media is just a way to camouflage what the real facts state about his job performance. As far as Eric Watts goes, Bill Watts isn't the first promoter to overpush his son. He won't be the last. Promoters have gone out of business because they couldn't see past their own blinders in pushing their son. Eric Watts may become a good wrestler someday. He may not. The fact that Dustin Rhodes was overpushed early in his career because of who his father was and is now a good wrestler, or even that the same happened with Dory and Terry Funk, who became all-time legends, is not a defense. The fact that there have been wrestlers with even less potential or less ability pushed harder in the past is also not a defense. Eric Watts is taking a lot of personal heat that he doesn't deserve for anything he's done. But it is a natural reaction based on the position he's been put in, a position he also doesn't deserve at this point. Paulie Dangerously and Medusa did their 5 minutes no-winner matches at all the house shows that were said to have been a lot more entertaining than the Clash, ending with Medusa wearing out a chair on him. No word on any future plans for Dangerously. Hard to believe they booked Christmas week with Sting vs. Muta, Simmons and Chono vs. Vader and Rude, and Steamboat and Douglas vs. Liger and Sasaki as the headliners. While all quality matches on paper, none were built up one iota on television, thus had no interest among the ticket-buying public. Rude got some pub in a passage in Kathy Lee Gifford's best-selling book I Can't Believe I Said That. The passage talked about an appearance by Rude while he was in the WWF as her personal low point of her TV show. In August 1989, Rude was a guest doing his WWF shtick and wanted to give her a kiss and actually chased her off the set, while she was 2 months pregnant. She said her husband Frank was so upset that he ripped into the producer who booked Rude and said if anything like this happens again that she would quit the show. The graphics and features, particularly on Battle Bowl and Sting Vader, that ran the last few weeks were excellent. WWF also did an excellent feature for Rumble with Hart and Ramon Hying, their match coming out of the television set. The readers' pages. Mike Swartz of 2 Huntington Street, Natick, Massachusetts 01760 is looking for a tape of the December 12th All Japan television special with the legendary matches. Kenneth Bonaparte of Route 1 Box 251, Ellery, South Carolina 29047 is looking for a regular money supplier of New Japan tapes. Richard Stafford of 489 Start Road Lot 102, Jacksonville, Florida 32218 is looking for pre-1985 Wrestling Observers. R. Scott Houston of 323 Robin Drive, Ocean City, Maryland 21842 is looking for a regular supplier of UWA, EMLL, WWC and any handheld tapes of Lucha Libre shows in either Southern California or Tijuana. Stuart Dinkus of 13913 Dressler, Barfield Heights, Ohio 44125 has a list of videos from the 60s and 70s from EVA, Japan, NWA, WWF. Mike Lonzolotti of 632 S Main Street, Williamstown, New Jersey 08094 is looking for a tape of the 1992 All-Star Game and get a regular supplier of SMW tapes. Frank Young of 18 Aspen Creek Lane, Laguna Hills, California 92653 wants videotapes of 1977-79 roller derby games. Kurt Schimmel of 103 Roosevelt Boulevard, Parla, New Jersey 08859 is looking for Memphis tapes and can trade All Japan, New Japan, SMW and or AAA in exchange. Sheldon Goldberg of P.O. Box 2371, Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts 02130 is selling a 1993 calendar for $8 with photos of Terry Funk, Dick the Bruiser, Ray Stevens, Buddy Rogers, Cactus Jack, Bruno Sammartino Luthez, Jim Cornette, Bull Nakano, Debbie Malenko, Roddy Piper, Crusher Verdu, Bobby Heenan, Nick Bockwinkel, Masachono Kejimuto, Shinya Hashimoto, Eduardo Carpentier, Bobby Shane, Lou Albano, Tim Horner, Yoshihiro Asai, and Parata Morgan. Rick Troutman of 203 Spring Street No. 2, Newton, New Jersey 07860 is looking to buy wrestling magazines dating back to 1970, back issues of the Wrestling Observer and getting any results or clippings dating back to 1970. Kent Davis of 407 Raven Street, Harrodsburg, Kentucky 40330 will trade anything in his wrestling collection for a mint copy of the Death of Superman comic book. Joe Lilly of 303 Sunshine PL. #E, Baltimore, Maryland 21228 is looking for any tapes of Pat Patterson vs. Ivan Koloff matches from Philadelphia, Stan Hansen matches and a regular supplier of New Japan, All Japan, SMW and USWA tapes. Frank Strom has announced that he is folding his newsletter Parts Unknown, but will be putting out a double-sized final issue in the spring. Bill Murray of 110 Krebs Road, North Lima, Ohio 44452 is looking for a supplier of USWA and SMW tapes and has tapes to trade of Continental when Eddie Gilbert was Booker. WCW. Bill Watts is taking heat for pushing his son, but I think the criticism is overblown. Having grown up on Mid-South Wrestling, I wonder whatever happened to Joel Watts. Was he really Watts' son? He seemed bored when he was a referee and an announcer, but he also set new standards in making music videos on wrestlers. What is he doing now? Greg Klein. Auburn, Alabama. DM, Joel Watts was the son of Bill's first wife and was raised by Bill. After Mid-South Sports sold to Jim Crockett Promotions in 1987, Joel Watts went to work in television production for Titan Sports, which pretty much spelled the beginning of the end of his relations with Bill. Joel hasn't worked in the wrestling business since quitting Titan soon after. I think Watts has lost it. So much of the clash was badly conceived and badly delivered. Having two wrestlers the caliber of Pillman and Armstrong start with a 25 seconds match set the stage. Paul E vs. Medusa storyline has been so embarrassing as to make me want to turn off the television set if my wife comes even near the room. It's not a good way to build ratings. In addition, the setup was inconsistent. Was Michael Hayes embarrassed by Paul E on Saturday or not? If so, why was he in his corner? I found the kicking of the pseudo-Medusa to be revolting. Announcing the pairings for the Lethal Lottery would have been a good idea if they hadn't announced such a dog of a match. Eric Watts is an embarrassment. He should be in the same spot as Marcus Bagwell. Rude and Sting was good, but I'd have preferred a pin. As for the tag title match, it was fine while it lasted, but the acting by Rhodes and Wyndham left a lot to be desired. The main curiosity to me is that they were teasing a Steamboat turn. Until Wyndham turned on Rhodes, Wyndham had acted no more of a heel than Steamboat. Rhodes' behavior would have turned the stomach of any competitive athlete. He didn't come off at all like a good guy. Notch up one more killed character. Paul Lindstrom. Tarrytown, New York. Independence. I really enjoyed the story on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. In the Detroit area, we have very few wrestling shows to attend. WCW is finally coming back in January after being gone 2 years. The WWF isn't geared toward wrestling. Motor City Wrestling puts on maybe 10 shows a year, mainly in the warmer months. I believe there is an audience that would support local promotions given the right tailored product. For a local promotion to survive, it is going to take a partnership between people with a wrestling background and the community. It is going to take involving people with expertise in the functional areas of running a business like marketing and accounting and not necessarily a wrestling background. I'm sure there are people with this expertise everywhere in the country. The wrestling business is currently very stale. It's time to let people in who can provide new input. Adam Kane,
Farmington Hills, Michigan.
I hope all the newsletters give an independent wrestling more coverage. Young workers develop there. Older workers appear to help draw fans.
Independent wrestling is the backbone of wrestling.
Remember, the next time you go to an independent show, you could possibly see a future star. If not, you'll still probably have a fun time. Dan Paris, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Historical observations. I wanted to correct my own mistake made in the information published in the November 16th Observer. The first Tom Jenkins vs. Frank Gotch match of February 22, 1903 was not for the American heavyweight title. Jenkins had dropped the title to Dan McLeod in Worcester, Massachusetts on December 25, 1902. Jenkins came into the match with an injured leg caused by blood poisoning. After splitting 2 falls, Jenkins was unable to continue 20 minutes into the 3rd fall and forfeited the title. Jenkins regained the title on April 3, 1903 in Buffalo in 2 straight falls. I also made a correction in my letter in the December 21st issue. In giving the date of the Stecker-Caddick title change, it looks like I transposed the date of Stecker's victory over Charlie Cutler with year of his loss to Caddick. The Stecker-Caddick match actually took place on April 9, 1917. Stecker first received world title recognition after his win over Cutler on July 4, 1915. As you are certainly aware, Japan is currently experiencing a recession at least as jolting as the one in the United States. I think a key point is the major decline in disposable income among those in Japan between 20 and 40 years of age. I may be wrong, but that seems to be the age of the core group of wrestling fans in Japan. It will be interesting to see the effect the economic downturn has upon the Japanese wrestling business.
One would speculate that there will continue to be some shaking out among the fringe minor league groups, but the more significant question is, will there continue to be a high enough demand to support the heavily scaled ticket pricing system of All Japan and New Japan?
John Williams, Arcadia, California. In a recent Boston Herald, Cliff Ducey wrote that when Bret Hart won the WWF title from Ric Flair, he said that Hart and Pedro Morales were the only wrestlers ever to hold the WWF title, the Intercontinental title, and the Tag Team title. Wasn't it called the North American title when Morales held it?
Also, wasn't the tag title change where Morales and Bob Backlund won the belts unrecognized, similar to the Inoki-Backlund title change?
Jerry Lane, Boston, Massachusetts. DM Morales held a title in 1971 called the United States title, but in the 80s also held the Intercontinental title on more than one occasion. The tag title win by Morales and Bob Backlund is recognized, although the two vacated the belts the same day they won them, August 9, 1980 from the Samoans, similar to Andre the Giant being recognized as a former WWF champion.
All Japan women.
I can't get over the decision to have Bull Nakano drop the strap to Asia Kong. Nakano has peaked as a worker over the past 3 years, just edging out Stan Hansen as the top ring personality in the world in my opinion.
She's yet to show any signs of a creative decline. This isn't the time to have her lose to the likes of Asia, unless this is merely intended to put heat on their renewed feud.
Asia has big charisma and some drawing power, but as a worker she peaked about a year or 2 back with her tag team with Bison Kimura. The question is whether or not Asia's persona is strong enough to build a promotion around. I could see Bull putting over a technical genius like Manami Toyota or a charismatic dynamo like Kyoko Inoue. I imagine Inoue as champ to be similar to Sting in WCW or Hogan in WWF. Bull vs. Asia is hardly a dream match as we've already seen it several times before.
Getting Chigusa Nagayo or Dump Matsumoto out of retirement to fight Bull is a dream match.
Frank Strom,
Revere, Massachusetts.
WWF. Monday Night Raw is an outstanding idea. Nothing beats the excitement of a truly live broadcast. They should be given a great deal of credit for this bold move. Anyone who knows what goes into producing their regular television shows should appreciate that. A USA Network show at 10 a.m. is terrific. It's unquestionably designed to attract young male children. This was the demographic group that so greatly supported Titan during their best times. Saturdays at 10 a.m. kids will be watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on CBS, but the little Hulksters and the like aren't going to switch from Ninja Turtles. Even little kids have their priorities.
I hope everyone who looks at the ratings realizes that All American Wrestling will never achieve anything in New York.
It's on directly opposite Wrestling Challenge on the local Fox station. Choosing between a nationwide generic show and a similar quality show with localized plus is a no-brainer. Finally, will Vince McMahon at last wise up enough to hire noted boxing ring announcer Michael Buffer for the Royal Rumble? Just to utter his immortal line, "Let's get ready to rumble." If that isn't a natural, I don't know what is. Michael Gendelman. Hicksville, New York.